Good morning, Midland Online Academy students and anybody else who's home or out sick today. It is Monday, January the 11th. I know that this says the 13th. I need to fix that. By the time you log in, I will, I hope. And our agenda today says I can explain the nullification crisis by completing a Google form over a reading and completing page 4 of my digital interactive notebook. So let's talk about the nullification crisis, okay? So, uh, I give you a Google form, which looks like this, right? And I give you a reading, which is a little bit different. It's on Khan Academy today. And on your interactive notebook, we have page 4. And so you can get to your Age of Jackson interactive notebook here. And if you open our notes, we get on slide number 5, the story of the nullification crisis. So this starts with the idea of tariffs. A tariff is a tax on imported goods. So in 1828, they started to tax English manufactured products. So at the time, as an example, let's say that because England um, could make things cheaper, that English cloth was running really even cheaper than $4 a roll. So England was undercutting the price of American made fabric. So they put a tax on the English goods so the American product would now be the same price or cheaper. And the reason you do this is it's good for the American factory, right? And most of the factories were in the North. So the tariff of 1828 helped Northern factories by making American products cost the same as cheaper imports, not by dropping the cost of the American product, but by raising taxes on the import so that they cost more. All right? That's how all tariffs work. Now, there's two problems with this. Number one, this means customers are paying more. And that can be a problem for a lot of people. But number two, nations often retaliate against tariffs by slapping tariffs on what we export. So in the 1828, in the 1820s, that meant farm goods, particularly cotton and tobacco. Cotton and tobacco were produced mostly in the South. So the tariff of 1828 helped northern factories, but it really hurt southern planters. So the state of South Carolina in 1832 passes a law that claims that they can nullify these tariffs, that they can ignore the federal tariff so they can work out a deal so that England will not tax South Carolina cotton and tobacco. Well, according to the Constitution, federal laws are supreme over state laws, meaning that a state cannot nullify or ignore a national law. When the federal government passes a law, the states have to go along with it. But South Carolina was serious about this to the point that Vice President John C. Calhoun, who was from South Carolina, actually quits his job as vice president, goes home to South Carolina, and in the House, in the state legislature in South Carolina, they actually threatened to secede from the Union. The same thing they're going to do 30 years later. Well, President Jackson doesn't like this. Now Jackson was a Southerner. And he understood why Southerners didn't like these tariffs, but he looks at this as a direct assault on his authority. And he takes this personally. He now hates John C. Calhoun. He feels like he's been betrayed. So Jackson threatens to personally lead the army, ride his horse down to South Carolina, take John C. Calhoun, drag him outside, and hang him from the nearest tree. In other words, the country got this close to civil war. Kentucky Senator Henry Clay works together, being a Southerner himself, reaches a compromise between northern and southern states in Congress, and they lower these tariffs. They don't get rid of them, so that the Southerners drop their opposition, and the South and the North get a little bit of what they want, and this ends the conflict. But for Jackson, he remains bitter about this. In fact, when he was being interviewed when he eventually left office after his 2 terms were up, a reporter said, "President Jackson, what are your regrets?" And he said, "Well, I should have shot Henry Clay and hung John C. Calhoun when I had the chance." In other words, this whole experience leaves a bad taste in President Jackson's mouth. Okay, so what you're going to do is use this article from Khan Academy and the lecture I just gave you, and use that to go through here and answer these questions and fill out these boxes on page 4. What did the tariff do? Taxed British factory goods. Reasons for the tariff: it helped sell more British products. It helped sell, it helped sell more American products and helped American factories in the North. Reasons against it: England retaliated and slapped tariffs on American farm goods, and prices for items went up. What was nullification? South Carolina said they could ignore a national law. Spoiler alert, they couldn't. And how did the conflict resolve? Henry Clay negotiated a compromise in Congress that the North and South could live with. That's it. That's what we're doing today. Tomorrow on Wednesday, you will be watching a documentary about the Trail of Tears and the removal of the Cherokee from their homeland. I'll post an instructional video on that in the morning. Until then, stay warm and have a great day, guys.